At the edge of the city, where glass towers cast shadows over broken sidewalks, Elena spent her days scrubbing floors in a mansion she could never dream of owning. She was poor, invisible, and tired, but she had one thing the rich family she served did not: a heart that still knew how to give. One rainy evening, outside a hospital, Elena saw a little boy crying alone. His clothes were expensive, his watch worth more than her yearly pay, but his face was pale with fear. He needed medicine, and the nurse at the counter refused to release it until the bill was paid. Elena had only $1 left, the last dollar meant for her dinner. She gave it anyway. By morning, the boy's billionaire father arrived with cameras, guards, and a family that treated Elena like dirt. Instead of gratitude, they accused her of trying to get attention. The billionaire's wife ordered security to throw her out of the mansion, calling her nothing but a maid. Elena walked away in the rain, hungry, humiliated, and unaware that her small act had already changed everything. Days later, the family gathered to celebrate their shocking $500 million victory in a high-stakes business battle. Lawyers praised strategy, executives applauded power, but then one old document surfaced, exposing the truth. The win had nothing to do with them. It was Elena's signature, Elena's sacrifice, and Elena's forgotten kindness that had saved their empire. Now the same family that kicked her out is racing to find her. But Elena is gone. And when they finally discover who she really is, their world will never be the same. Elena Ramirez had learned early that rich houses had their own weather. Some mornings the Vale mansion was cold even when all 27 rooms were heated. Some afternoons, thunder seemed to roll through the marble halls, though the sky outside was blue. The storms came from people, not clouds, from slammed doors, sharp voices, and the kind of silence that made servants walk softer. Elena had worked there for 9 months. She cleaned the east wing, polished the silver staircase, washed crystal glasses that cost more than her rent, and kept her eyes lowered whenever Claudia Vale passed through a room. Claudia was beautiful in a sharp, expensive way. Her hair never had a strand out of place. Her smile appeared only when guests arrived. To the staff, she spoke as if every word were a favor. Do not touch the blue vase without gloves. Do not let the boy eat in the library. Do not look at me when I'm speaking to someone important. Elena obeyed because she needed the work. Her grandmother's medicine was behind by 2 weeks. The landlord had already taped a warning to the apartment door. Every dollar mattered. The only gentle person in the mansion was Noah Vale. He was 8 years old, small for his age, with serious brown eyes and a habit of hiding behind curtains when adults argued. He had tutors, drivers, silk pajamas, and a bedroom with a ceiling painted like the night sky, but Elena had never seen a child look lonelier. Sometimes, when she dusted the music room, Noah would sit at the piano and play one key at a time. Do you know songs? He asked her once. A few, Elena said. My mom says music should be learned properly. My grandmother says music should be felt first. Noah considered this carefully. Your grandmother sounds nicer. Elena smiled before she could stop herself. She is. From that day on, Noah looked for her whenever the house grew too loud. He told her about school, about the dog he wanted but was not allowed to have, about the headaches that came and went. Elena listened while she worked, never saying too much, never forgetting the invisible line between the people who owned the mansion and the people who cleaned it. But lines did not matter the night she found him at St. Agnes Hospital. That evening had been chaos. Rain hammered the streets, buses ran late. Elena's shoes had holes in both soles and cold water soaked her socks. She had taken the long way home from the mansion because she wanted to stop at the hospital pharmacy. Her grandmother's prescription was ready, but Elena knew she could not pay for it yet. Still, she liked to ask. Sometimes the pharmacist took pity and gave her one extra day. She had $1 in her coat pockets. $1.12 if she counted the coins buried in the lining. That was when she heard someone crying near the emergency entrance. At first, she thought it was a lost toddler, But then she saw the boy curled against the wall, his expensive coat soaked, his face pale under the fluorescent lights. Noah! He looked up and terror broke across his face. Elena. She ran to him. What are you doing here alone? I needed my medicine, he whispered. Dad's at a meeting. Mom left for the gala. The driver brought me, but he got a call and went outside. The nurse said the account was frozen because the system changed and they need a payment to release it. His breath hitched. It's only $1, but I don't have cash. Elena stared at him. His hands trembled. She did not understand the rich. They had accounts, cards, drivers, assistants, entire rooms for coats. Yet here was this child, trapped by a machine that wanted $1 while his body fought him. Come on, she said. The nurse at the pharmacy window barely looked up. I already told him. The emergency release requires a token payment and a signature. He's a child, Elena said. And this is hospital policy. Elena wanted to argue, but Noah leaned against her, suddenly heavier than he looked. So she reached into her pocket and took out the $1. It was wrinkled, soft from being folded too many times. Her dinner money, her bus money, her last tiny proof that she could still get through the night. She pushed it under the glass. I'll sign. The nurse slid over a form. Name. Elena Ramirez. Relation to patient. Elena paused. Noah watched her with frightened eyes. She wrote Good Samaritan. The nurse stamped the paper, took the $1, and handed over a small white packet of medicine. Elena helped Noah take it with water from a paper cup. Within minutes, some color returned to his face. You saved me, he whispered. No, Elena said gently. I helped you. There's a difference. My parents will thank you. Elena looked at the rain-streaked glass doors and thought of Claudia Vale's cold eyes. Maybe. Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver keychain shaped like a star. Take this. I can't. Please, so I know I thanked you. Elena accepted it because refusing seemed to hurt him more than giving. She tucked it into her coat pocket. By morning, the whole city knew Noah Vale had been found at St. Agnes. News vans gathered outside the mansion. Reporters shouted questions about negligence, security, and the mysterious maid who had appeared with the billionaire's son. Adrian Vale arrived first, stepping out of a black car with rain still shining on the hood. He was tall, tired-looking, and surrounded by lawyers. Then Claudia arrived. She swept into the foyer wearing pearls and fury. Noah tried to explain. Mom, Elena helped me. She paid for my medicine. Claudia's gaze snapped to Elena, who stood near the staff entrance in her plain uniform. You, Claudia said. Elena clasped her hands in front of her. He was alone. I only. You only what? Followed him, waited for a moment to make yourself look heroic. The accusation struck Elena so suddenly she could not answer. No, Noah cried. She didn't know I was there. Adrian looked from his son to Elena, confusion in his face. Is this true? Yes, sir, Elena said. I found him outside the hospital. The pharmacy needed $1. I signed the release because you wanted your name attached to my son, Claudia interrupted. Do you know how dangerous this is? Do you know what people will say? Elena felt all eyes on her. Guards, maids, reporters visible through the front windows. I didn't call anyone, she said quietly. I didn't ask for anything. Claudia laughed, but there was no humor in it. People like you always ask, maybe not at first. Noah began to cry. Adrian put a hand on his shoulder, but he did not defend Elena, not then. He was too busy watching the cameras outside, too busy calculating damage. Claudia turned to the head of security. Get her out. Noah screamed, no. Elena flinched as two guards moved toward her. I can walk, she said. She untied her apron with shaking hands and placed it on the table. Her throat burned, but she refused to cry in front of them. As she passed Noah, he grabbed her wrist. I'm sorry, he sobbed. Elena bent just enough to whisper, "You did nothing wrong." Then she stepped out into the rain. No one gave her an umbrella. No one gave her her final pay. By the time she reached the bus stop, her uniform clung to her skin and her stomach cramped with hunger. She opened her palm and saw Noah's star keychain shining there. She closed her fist around it and kept walking. The Vale mansion returned to its usual brightness by the end of the week. Flowers were replaced, carpets were cleaned, staff were instructed not to speak about Elena Ramirez. Claudia told friends that the maid had been unstable. Adrian told his lawyers to make sure no one could sue. Noah stopped coming downstairs for breakfast. But outside the mansion, Elena's life collapsed quickly. Without work, she could not pay rent. Without rent, she and her grandmother had to leave their apartment. They moved into a small room behind a church laundry where the walls smelled of soap and old wood. Elena found temporary jobs washing dishes and folding donated clothes. At night, she sat beside her grandmother's narrow bed and pretended she was not afraid. Her grandmother, Rosa, saw through everything. "You gave your last dollar to a child," Rosa said one evening, holding the silver star keychain. "I should have used it for your medicine. You used it for someone's life. I lost my job. You kept your soul." Elena looked away. "Souls don't pay rent." "No," Rosa said, "but losing one costs more." Rosa had raised Elena after her father died. Dr. Rafael Ramirez had once been a brilliant engineer, though Elena remembered him mostly as a tired man with kind hands. He had designed medical devices, little machines meant to help children whose bodies betrayed them. When he died, he left behind notebooks, a cracked leather bag, and a sentence Rosa repeated like a prayer. "Never let them make you believe kindness is weakness." Elena had heard it so often that some days it irritated her. Kindness had not saved her father from debt. Kindness had not stopped wealthy men from taking credit for his work. Kindness had not kept Elena from scrubbing floors in the house, built partly from ideas her father once dreamed over their kitchen table. But even when Elena doubted the words, she lived by them. 2 weeks after she was fired, she returned to St. Agnes, not as a patient, but as a volunteer. The church had arranged meal deliveries for families waiting in the pediatric ward, and Elena helped carry soup, bread, and donated blankets. She avoided the pharmacy window. She avoided the hallway where she had signed the form. She tried not to think about Noah. But Noah thought about her every day. At the mansion, he stopped speaking to his mother except when necessary. He asked every servant if they knew where Elena had gone. No one answered. Some did not know, others were afraid. One afternoon, he found his father in the glass office overlooking the city. Adrian Vale was on the phone, discussing arbitration, settlement language, and a number so large Noah could barely understand it. $500 million. When the call ended, Noah stepped inside. "Dad." Adrian rubbed his eyes. "Not now, buddy. You let Mom throw Elena out." Adrian's face tightened. "It was complicated." "No, it was. You're a child. You don't understand what people can do to families like ours." "She helped me." Adrian looked at him then, really looked. Noah was pale again, thinner than before, clutching the edge of the desk as if courage required support. "I know she helped," Adrian said softly. "Then why didn't you say anything?" The question landed harder than any accusation from an adult could have. Adrian had built companies, negotiated with ministers, destroyed competitors, and faced courtrooms without blinking. Yet he could not answer his son. Because Claudia had been louder. Because the cameras were watching. Because he had spent so long protecting the Vale name that he had forgotten to protect what was right. "I made a mistake," he said. Noah's eyes filled. "Find her." Adrian promised he would try. But before he could act, the $500 million case reached its final hearing. Vale Medical Systems had been fighting Halden Crown Capital for nearly 4 years over the rights to a pediatric emergency device called the Lumen Patch. It was a small adhesive patch that delivered a life-saving dose of medicine during sudden cardiac episodes in children. Vale Medical claimed it had funded the research, completed the trials, and owned the patent. Halden claimed Vale had violated the original humanitarian clause attached to the invention, and therefore had no right to the international licensing award. The case was messy, old, and dangerous. If Vale won, the company would receive $500 million in damages and licensing rights across 3 continents. If Vale lost, Adrian's empire would fracture. On the day the decision arrived, the Vale family gathered in the mansion ballroom. Executives drank champagne before the official announcement. Claudia wore emerald silk. Adrian stood with his legal team near the fireplace. Noah watched from the stairs, unhappy and ignored. The lead attorney, Marcus Ellery, entered with a sealed folder. Everyone quieted. Marcus smiled. "We won." The room erupted. Claudia gasped and covered her mouth. Adrian exhaled as if he had been holding his breath for years. Executives embraced. Someone shouted for more champagne. Cameras flashed as the family posed beneath the chandelier. $500 million, Claudia whispered. "Adrian, we did it." Adrian nodded, but his smile was tired. Marcus lifted a hand. "There is one more matter." The celebration softened, but did not stop. The arbitration panel accepted our final evidence packet. Specifically, they cited proof that the Lumen Patch's emergency access clause remained active through a verified Good Samaritan release. Adrian frowned. "What evidence?" Marcus opened the folder. A hospital document from St. Agnes, recent. It showed that the Lumen Patch was released in an emergency to Noah Vale under the original $1 Mercy Protocol. Claudia's smile faded. Noah leaned over the banister. Marcus continued. The panel ruled that the device had not been restricted for elite private use, as Halden claimed. It was still legally tied to the humanitarian system established by the original inventor. That destroyed Halden's central argument. Adrian's voice lowered. "Who signed the release?" Marcus looked at the paper again, though he already knew. "Elena Ramirez." The room changed. Not loudly, not dramatically at first. It was more like the air had been removed. Claudia's face went still. Adrian stared at the document. Noah ran down the stairs. "Elena," he said, "Elena is why you won." Marcus hesitated. In legal terms, her signature preserved the chain of compliance. Without it, the panel likely would have frozen the award pending further review. One executive muttered, "A Maid saved a $500 million case." Noah snapped, "Her name is Elena." Adrian took the document from Marcus. The form was simple: hospital seal, patient name, token payment, $1, release type, Mercy Protocol, signature, Elena Ramirez, relation, Good Samaritan. Beneath that, attached by the arbitration panel, was an older document Adrian had never seen. It was dated 18 years earlier. Founding humanitarian clause for the Lumen Pediatric Delivery System. Inventor, Dr. Rafael Ramirez. Adrian's hand tightened around the page. "Ramirez," he said. Marcus nodded grimly. "There is more. Elena Ramirez appears to be his daughter." Claudia stepped back. "That's impossible." "It is not," Marcus said. "And according to this clause, Dr. Ramirez's surviving heir retains moral trusteeship over the device's humanitarian use." The panel did not award her ownership of the company, but they specifically named her as the reason Vale Medical remained eligible for damages. Adrian read the final paragraph. "The invention shall never be severed from its purpose, to reach the child in need, regardless of wealth, status, or family name." He felt suddenly sick. Years ago, when Adrian's father ran the company, Rafael Ramirez had been spoken of as a minor contractor, a technician, a dreamer who lacked business sense. Adrian had never questioned the story. Now he saw the truth buried in formal language. Rafael Ramirez had not been a minor anything. He had been the heart of the invention. And his daughter had cleaned their floors. Claudia's voice sharpened. This does not change what she did. Noah stared at her. She saved me. She signed a form. With her last dollar. The words echoed through the ballroom. Adrian looked at his son. What? Noah's chin trembled. She had $1. The nurse said she needed it. Elena gave it to them. She didn't eat because of me. The champagne in Claudia's glass shook slightly. Marcus closed the folder. We need to find her, not only morally, legally. The panel may request testimony before final disbursement, and if Halden discovers we mistreated Dr. Ramirez's heir. Stop, Adrian said. Everyone looked at him. For the first time in years, Adrian Vale did not sound like a billionaire, chairman, or strategist. He sounded like a man ashamed. We find her because we owe her, he said. The search began that night. Adrian hired investigators, but Noah insisted on helping. He gave them the Silver Star keychains matching receipt from a boutique gift shop, thinking it might matter. He described Elena's grandmother, her old neighborhood, the bus route she took, the way she hummed when cleaning the library. Claudia did not help. She stayed in her room, telling herself this was manipulation, coincidence, a trap. But the more she repeated those words, the weaker they became. On the third day, Adrian visited Elena's former apartment building. The landlord remembered her. Quiet girl, he said, paid late sometimes, but she paid, took care of her grandmother. You people looking for her now? You people? Adrian asked. Rich people, the landlord said, always show up after the damage. Adrian had no answer. At the church laundry, Sister Agnes recognized Elena's name but folded her arms. Why do you want her? Adrian handed over his card. I need to apologize. Apologies are easy when they cost less than guilt. I also need to make things right. Then start by understanding that she is not missing. She is avoiding the kind of people who hurt her. Noah stepped forward from behind his father. Please, I just want to know she's okay. Sister Agnes softened at the sight of him. She studied his pale face and worried eyes. She volunteers at St. Agnes sometimes, the nun said, but I will not tell you where she sleeps. She deserves peace. That evening, Adrian went to the hospital. He did not bring cameras. He did not bring guards. He brought Noah and a single envelope containing Elena's unpaid wages, multiplied by every day since she had been fired. They found her in the pediatric waiting room, handing soup to a mother with 2 sleeping children. Elena saw them and froze. For a second, Noah looked ready to run into her arms, but he stopped himself, suddenly aware that his family had no right to expect welcome. Elena, he said. Her face softened. Hi, Noah. Adrian stepped forward. Miss Ramirez. She straightened, polite and guarded. Mr. Vale. I came to apologize. The soup ladle trembled in her hand. Elena gave a small, tired smile. For which part? Adrian looked down. All of it. Noah's eyes filled again. I tried to stop them. I know, Elena said. My mom was wrong. Elena did not answer. Adrian held out the envelope. Your wages and compensation for. No. Elena, please. No, she repeated firmer. You don't get to put money over a wound and call it healed. Adrian lowered the envelope. Around them, families watched quietly. Elena's dignity filled the room in a way Claudia's diamonds never had. We learned about your father, Adrian said. Elena's face changed. It was quick, but Adrian saw it. Shock, pain, fear, and something like anger. What about him? Dr. Rafael Ramirez, the Lumen Patch, the arbitration panel named him in the founding clause. Elena set the ladle down. They remembered him because they needed him. The words cut with precision. Adrian nodded slowly. Yes. My father died, believing your company erased him. I didn't know. But you benefited. Again, Adrian had no answer. Noah looked between them. Elena, are you mad at me? Her expression broke. She knelt in front of him. Never at you. I missed you. I missed you too. Noah held out something in his small palm, the other half of the star keychain, a tiny moon. I kept it, he said, so we matched. Elena pressed her lips together, fighting tears. Adrian watched them and understood something painful. His son had known how to honor kindness better than every adult in the mansion. Elena, Adrian said quietly, the final award may depend on your testimony, but I won't force you, I won't pressure you. If you never want to speak to us again, I deserve that. Elena stood. What would my testimony do? It would confirm the hospital release and the humanitarian purpose of your father's invention. And Vale Medical gets $500 million. Yes. What does the world get? The question silenced him. Elena looked toward the pediatric ward. Because my father did not design that patch so families like yours could win lawsuits. He designed it because a child in an ambulance might not have time to wait. He designed it because poor children die waiting for systems to decide whether they are worth saving. Adrian swallowed. What do you want? For once, Elena said, I want powerful people to tell the truth. She walked away before he could respond. The next morning, Claudia Vale came to the hospital alone. She had not planned to. She had told herself she would never chase a maid. But sleep had abandoned her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Noah crying in the foyer, Elena standing soaked and humiliated, the old document with Rafael Ramirez's name. Claudia had built her life on control. She controlled rooms, staff, headlines, dinner seating, charity boards, even emotions. But guilt did not obey her. She found Elena in the hospital chapel. The chapel was small, with wooden pews and a stained glass window that turned morning light blue and gold. Elena sat in the back row, hands folded, not praying exactly, just breathing. Claudia stood at the entrance. For once, she looked uncertain. Elena. Elena turned, her face closed immediately. I'm not here to insult you, Claudia said. That's new. Claudia absorbed it. I deserved that. Yes. The honesty strung more than shouting would have. Claudia sat 2 pews away, leaving space like an offering. When Noah was born, she began, he stopped breathing for almost a minute. I remember doctors running, machines making sounds, Adrian looking terrified. I remember thinking I would give anything if he would just cry. Elena looked forward. When he got older, I became afraid of everything. Germs, strangers, bad press, people using him. I thought if I controlled everything, I could keep him safe. You left him alone at a hospital. Claudia closed her eyes. Yes. The word was barely audible. I was at a gala raising money for children's medicine, Claudia said bitterly. Can you imagine? Smiling beside a gold sign about compassion while my own son was scared. Elena did not comfort her. Claudia deserved that too. I called you nothing but a maid because I needed you to be small, Claudia said. If you were small, then what I did was not monstrous. If you were greedy, then I was not cruel. If you were nobody, then I did not owe you gratitude. Elena's jaw tightened. But you are not nobody, Claudia said, and I am sorry. For a long moment, only the hum of hospital air filled the chapel. Elena finally spoke. My grandmother used to clean offices at night. She said the rich apologize differently when they need something. Claudia nodded. That is fair. Do you need something? Yes, Claudia admitted, But that is not the only reason I came. Elena studied her. Claudia removed a small velvet pouch from her handbag and placed it on the pew between them. This is not payment, it's the dollar. Elena frowned. I went to the hospital pharmacy. They still had it clipped to the release file because it was entered as evidence. Adrian's attorney had it returned after making a certified copy. I thought, Claudia stopped, ashamed of how foolish it sounded. I thought it belonged to you. Elena picked up the pouch and opened it. Inside was a wrinkled $1 bill. Her last dollar. For reasons she could not explain, seeing it hurt more than losing it had. That dollar had been hunger, fear, choice. It had been the moment she decided a child's need mattered more than her own. Claudia's voice broke. Thank you for feeding my son with what should have fed you. Elena closed the pouch. I will testify, she said. Claudia looked up, startled. But not for you. I understand. No, Elena said, you don't. I will testify for my father, for Noah, for every child whose life became a clause in a contract, and after I testify, your family will tell the world who Rafael Ramirez was. Claudia nodded slowly, yes. And Vale Medical will restore the humanitarian fund. I'll support it. No, you will not support it like a charity gala. You will sign it, publicly, legally. Claudia took a breath. The old Claudia would have negotiated. The old Claudia would have bristled at being commanded by a former maid. But the old Claudia had nearly cost her son, the only person who had saved him, without wanting anything back. Okay, she said. Elena stood, then we'll see if your apology can walk. The final hearing was scheduled for Friday. Halden Crown Capital moved quickly once rumors spread that the mysterious Good Samaritan was Rafael Ramirez's daughter. Their lawyers filed objections. They claimed Vale Medical had hidden material facts. They demanded a freeze of the award. By then, the story had begun leaking to the press. Headlines appeared across the city. Maid's $1 payment, SAVED Billionaire's $500 M award. Forgotten inventor's daughter found in Vale case. Was Lumen Patch built on erased legacy? Reporters camped outside St. Agnes and the Vale mansion. This time, Elena refused to be chased. Sister Agnes helped her enter through the service corridor. Adrian assigned security to protect her, but at Elena's request, they wore plain clothes and kept their distance. The night before the hearing, Elena opened her father's old leather bag. Inside were notebooks filled with sketches, formulas, and little messages in the margins. Her father had drawn stars beside ideas he liked. He had written her name once on the inside cover. For Elena, so she remembers that light travels. She traced the words with her finger. Rosa sat beside her, wrapped in a shawl. You're nervous, her grandmother said. I'm angry. That too. What if I say the wrong thing? Truth is not the wrong thing. Elena laughed softly. You make everything sound simple. No, I make it sound possible. Elena pulled out an old photograph. Her father stood in a lab beside a younger Adrian's father, Charles Vale. Raphael wore a wrinkled shirt and a shy smile. Charles wore a suit and the confidence of a man who expected history to spell his name correctly. He trusted them, Elena said. He trusted the work, Rosa corrected, not them. Do you think he'd want me to help Vale win? Rosa was quiet for a while. I think he would want the invention protected. I think he would want children to live. And I think he would want his daughter to stand where they could no longer pretend not to see her. Elena folded the photograph into her notebook. The hearing room was packed. Arbitrators sat at the front behind polished wood. Vale Medical occupied one side with Adrian, Claudia, Noah, Marcus Ellery, and a row of executives. Halden Crown sat opposite, their lawyers whispering behind sleek tablets. Elena entered without jewelry, without designer clothes, without anything meant to impress. She wore a simple navy dress borrowed from Sister Agnes and carried her father's notebook against her chest. The room turned toward her. Some people saw a maid. Some saw a headline. Noah saw Elena and smiled. She smiled back. The first hour belonged to lawyers. They argued over clauses, dates, compliance standards, emergency release procedures, patent ethics, and whether a $1 transaction could preserve a global licensing structure. Elena listened, amazed at how many words powerful people could place between themselves and the truth. Finally, the chief arbitrator called her name. Elena Ramirez. She stood. Marcus guided her through basic questions: her name, her age, her relationship to Dr. Rafael Ramirez, her employment at the Vale residence, her presence at St. Agnes Hospital the night Noah needed medicine. "Why did you pay the $1?" Marcus asked. Elena looked at Noah. "Because he needed help." "Did anyone from Vale Medical instruct you to do so?" "No." "Were you promised money, employment, or favor in exchange?" "No." "Did you know your signature would affect this arbitration?" "No." "Then why sign as Good Samaritan?" "Because the form asked my relation to the patient. I wasn't family, I wasn't staff, I was just someone there." Marcus nodded, "Thank you." Then Halden's attorney rose. His name was Pierce, and he approached with a smile that tried to look gentle. "Miss Ramirez, you were fired by the Vale family, correct?" "Yes." "Humiliated?" "Yes." "Angry?" "Yes." Murmurs moved through the room. Pierce smiled wider. "So you have reason to harm them?" Elena met his eyes. "I have reason to tell the truth." "Truth can be shaped by resentment. So can questions." A few people shifted. Noah grinned. Pierce's smile thinned. "Miss Ramirez, are you aware that if Vale Medical loses this award, the company suffers severe financial damage?" "Yes." "And yet you are helping them." "I am helping the record." "Isn't it true you now stand to gain from this attention?" Elena's fingers tightened around the notebook. "I stood in the rain with no dinner and no job. I slept in a church laundry. I watched people call my father a footnote. If attention was what I wanted, I chose a very painful way to get it." The room quieted. Pierce tried another path. "Your father signed away his rights." Elena opened the notebook. "My father signed a development agreement. He did not sign away his name. He did not sign away the humanitarian clause. He did not sign away the purpose of his work." Pierce frowned. "That notebook is not certified evidence." "No," Elena said. "It is memory. I know that has less value here." Even the arbitrators looked moved. The chief arbitrator leaned forward. "Miss Ramirez, in your view, what is the purpose of the lumen patch?" Elena turned slightly, not just to the panel, but to the room. "My father believed no child should die because an adult could not pay fast enough. He believed emergency medicine should move quicker than paperwork. He knew companies needed money to produce devices, but he also knew money could become a locked door. So he built a key into the invention, a promise, the Mercy Protocol." She paused. "That night, Noah Vale was not a billionaire's son to me. He was a scared child outside a hospital. I had $1. He needed it. That should not be extraordinary." Claudia lowered her head. Elena continued, her voice steady. "But in a world where people are measured by wealth before worth, maybe ordinary kindness becomes evidence. So here is my testimony. The protocol worked because it reached a child in need. My father's invention did what he meant it to do, not because the Vale family was powerful, not because lawyers were clever, because a nurse followed a rule, a child asked for help, and someone paid attention." She looked at Adrian. "If Vale Medical receives this money, then it should remember what saved it." The hearing room remained silent after she finished. No dramatic applause, no shouting, just silence heavy enough to become judgment. The panel withdrew. They returned 2 hours later. The chief arbitrator read the decision. The $500 million award would stand. But the panel added binding conditions. Vale Medical had to restore the Ramirez Humanitarian Fund with a significant portion of the award. The Lumen Patch Mercy Protocol had to remain active in every market. Rafael Ramirez had to be publicly recognized as principal inventor. Elena Ramirez would serve as independent trustee of the fund, with full authority to audit access programs. Adrian closed his eyes. Not in defeat. In relief. Halden's attorneys looked furious. Vale executives looked stunned. Claudia cried silently. Noah ran to Elena before anyone could stop him and hugged her around the waist. This time, Elena hugged him back. Outside the hearing room, cameras waited. Adrian stepped to the microphones first. Claudia stood beside him, pale but composed. Elena remained a few steps back, unwilling to be used as decoration. Adrian looked into the cameras. For years, Vale Medical benefited from the work of Dr. Rafael Ramirez without giving him the recognition he deserved. That ends today. The Lumen Patch exists because of his brilliance and his belief that emergency medicine must serve every child. We also owe a debt to his daughter, Elena Ramirez, whose compassion saved my son and preserved the purpose of this invention. Reporters shouted questions. Adrian lifted a hand. I failed Miss Ramirez. My family failed her. We treated her as invisible while depending on her courage. I am sorry. Then Claudia stepped forward. The microphones seemed to make her nervous for the first time in her life. I called Elena Ramirez nothing but a maid, she said, her voice trembling. Those words were cruel, false, and shameful. Work does not make a person small. Wealth does not make a person worthy. Elena saw my son when I did not. She protected him when I failed to. I will spend the rest of my life remembering that. Elena watched Claudia carefully. An apology in public could still be theater, but Claudia's hands shook. Her mascara had smudged. Her pride, once polished like armor, looked cracked. Maybe that was where change began, not in perfection, but in cracks wide enough for truth to enter. A reporter called, Miss Ramirez, do you forgive the Vale family? The question irritated her. People loved forgiveness when it allowed a story to end neatly. Elena stepped forward. Forgiveness is not a headline, she said. It is work. Today was a beginning. Another reporter asked, what will you do with your new position? Elena looked toward St. Agnes Hospital visible down the avenue, its windows catching the afternoon sun. I'll make sure no child needs a stranger's last dollar to receive medicine. That line ran on every channel by evening. Within months, the Ramirez Humanitarian Fund opened its first office, not in Vale Tower, but across from St. Agnes, in a renovated brick building with wide doors and no marble staircase. Elena insisted on glass walls for the waiting area, not because she wanted luxury, but because she hated hidden suffering. The fund paid for emergency access programs, mobile clinics, translation services, and pharmacy grants. It hired nurses who understood that poverty was not irresponsibility. It built a hotline for parents who had been told to wait, call back, fill out another form, bring another document. Elena worked harder than she had ever worked in the mansion, but the exhaustion felt different. It had purpose. Adrian visited often, not with cameras, but with files. He learned to listen. At first, staff stiffened when he entered. Over time, they noticed he no longer expected the room to rearrange itself around him. Claudia volunteered once a week. The first time she arrived, Elena handed her a stack of intake forms. Claudia stared at them. You want me to file paperwork? Yes. I'm on 3 charity boards. Then alphabetizing should be easy. For a second, Claudia looked offended. Then she laughed. It was small, rusty, and surprised them both. Noah came after school whenever his health allowed. He read books to younger children in the waiting room and kept a jar on Alina's desk filled with folded paper stars. Each star had a message inside. You matter. Help is coming. You are not alone. One afternoon, nearly a year after the hearing, Alina found an envelope on her desk. Inside was the original $1 bill, framed between two pieces of clear glass. Beneath it, engraved on a small brass plate, were the words, "The dollar that reminded an empire what it was for." Alina found Noah hiding by the doorway, grinning. "Was this you?" she asked. "Maybe." She lifted an eyebrow. "Dad helped. And your mother." She cried when she saw it. Alina looked at the dollar for a long time. Then she placed it on the shelf beside her father's photograph. Rafael Ramirez smiled from the old picture, shy and hopeful, as if he had always known light could travel farther than darkness. That evening, the Vale family held a dedication ceremony for the Ramirez pediatric wing at St. Agnes. Alina almost refused to attend. She still disliked grand events, but Rosa told her to go. "Not for them," her grandmother said, "for your father and for the girl who walked away in the rain." So Alina went. The hospital courtyard glowed with lanterns. Doctors, nurses, families, reporters, and former patients gathered around a blue ribbon. Adrian spoke briefly. Claudia spoke even less. Noah stood beside Alina, holding the scissors with both hands. "You should cut it," he whispered. "We'll do it together." As the ribbon fell, applause rose into the night. Alina looked around at the faces. Tired parents, laughing children, nurses with wet eyes, workers from the church laundry, former servants from the mansion, executives who now knew her name. For most of her life, Alina had believed power belonged to people in towers, people with guards, people with signatures that moved money. But she had learned something different. A signature could move money, yes. A dollar could unlock medicine. A voice could restore a name. And kindness, even when mocked, even when punished, even when given by someone the world called nothing, could shake an empire until it remembered its soul. Claudia approached quietly after the ceremony. "I know forgiveness is work," she said. "I'm still working." Alina nodded. "So am I." "Noah wants you to come to dinner next week." "At the mansion?" "Yes." Alina smiled faintly. "Will I be entering through the front door this time?" Claudia's eyes filled, but she smiled too. Only the front door, always. A week later, Alina returned to the Vale mansion. The same gates opened, the same fountains glittered, the same marble floors shone beneath chandeliers, but Alina did not wear a maid's uniform. She wore a cream blouse, dark trousers, and her father's old watch. Staff members greeted her warmly, some hugged her, others whispered congratulations. At the grand staircase, Alina paused. She remembered standing there soaked and shaking while guards moved toward her. She remembered Noah crying, Claudia's voice, Adrian's silence. Then Noah came, running down the stairs. "Alina!" This time, no one stopped him. He hugged her, then dragged her toward the dining room where Adrian and Claudia waited. There were no reporters, no executives, no performance. Just dinner. At the table, Claudia served Alina first. It was awkward, symbolic, imperfect. But it mattered. Halfway through the meal, Noah asked, "Alina, are you rich now?" Claudia nearly choked on her water. Adrian hid a smile. Alina laughed, "Not billionaire rich. But you're important." She looked at him gently. "I was important before." Noah thought about that. "Even when you were a maid." "Especially then." "Why especially?" "Because nobody's job decides their worth. And sometimes the people doing the hardest work are the ones holding everything together." Noah nodded seriously. Adrian looked down at his plate. Claudia reached for her glass, then stopped, as if deciding she did not need to hide behind movement. After dinner, Elena wandered into the music room. The piano still stood by the tall windows. She touched one key, and a soft note filled the room. Noah appeared beside her. "Do you still know songs?" "A few." "Can you teach me one your grandmother likes?" Elena sat beside him. Together they played slowly, one key at a time. Outside, the city glittered. Glass towers still cast shadows. Broken sidewalks still waited beneath them. The world had not become fair overnight. But somewhere inside that unfair world, a poor maid's last dollar had become a seed. It grew into medicine. It grew into justice. It grew into a little boy, learning that gratitude must be louder than pride. It grew into a family learning that wealth without humility was only another kind of poverty. And it grew into Elena Ramirez, standing in a house she once cleaned, no longer invisible, no longer hungry, no longer waiting for the powerful to decide her value. Years later, people would still tell the story. Some told it as a tale of a billionaire's son. Some told it as a scandal about a rich family humbled. Some told it as the case of the $500 million signature. But Elena told it differently. She said it was about a child outside a hospital. A dollar, a choice, and the truth her father had left behind. No act of kindness is ever wasted. Sometimes it is the only thing holding the whole world together.